Hey there, thanks for joining me today for this review. If you're new here, my name is Adam. Welcome to the Lucky Dink Pickleball Club. I'm gonna go ahead and skip my normal B-roll intro because I feel like we have a lot to get through on this one. But before we do, I wanna say that there's a little bit of a delay from getting this review out for two reasons. One, I've had these paddles for quite some time, but it was over winter and it was kind of chilly. And so trying to find daytime to film so it's not all at night under the lights and getting indoors to play took some time. Also, I recorded this review and then I accidentally deleted the footage. Luckily, I didn't delete the gameplay footage, so that saved me. But this is gonna be the second time that I've recorded this, so hopefully I can get it through and be even better than the first time, and you'll never even know. All right, so now that that's out of the way, I do give a little disclaimer. I'm not a big channel. I don't have a ton of paddle companies knocking down my door to review their stuff. And I kind of like it that way, and I'd like it to stay that way because that means I get to hand pick the companies that I'm reviewing. And that's no different than this one here with the Body Helix FLiK line. I reached out to Body Helix because they're a North Carolina-based company, so I've seen them in some of the local clubs, and I've able to demo a few of their paddles. I ended up demoing the X4, the X5, and the X3 Pro. I loved it so much, I bought one, used because they discontinued it. But I absolutely love it, and this and the X2 Pro are now my main paddle. So yes, I think they impacted me in some way because I absolutely love their paddles. Now, what does that mean? Well, I honestly love them because of the build quality and the way they play. It feels like they've actually put some quality into their paddles. So let's get started. Today we're reviewing the FLiK lineup of the Body Helix. Now they currently have 3 paddles in their FLiK lineup, the F1, the FLiK Plus, and the Gen 3. I was sent the FLiK Plus and the Gen 3. So let's start with the FLiK Gen 3 paddle from Body Helix. Quick specs, 16 millimeter thick, 16 inches long, 7.7 inches wide, with a 5.5 inch handle, and static weight of 8.1 ounces. 2 layers of carbon fiber underneath of the top layer of blue Kevlar. That's pretty much it as far as specs go. But I feel like there's more to this than what you see on that spec sheet. This is a Gen 3 thermoformed paddle, and it didn't give me any break-in. I played with this from the beginning to the end and never felt like any of its characteristics changed. So that's the first thing. I appreciated a Gen 3 paddle that was consistent throughout and felt really solid. 2, it's a Gen 3 paddle that is very controllable. It wasn't too poppy, and it felt like it's more of an all-court plus, where it was incredibly controllable. You could reset, you could drop, but man, does it give you power when you want it. In my previous video where I experimented with the third-person view with the camera over my shoulder, I actually was playing with this Gen 3 paddle, and it was quite fun, and you can see some of the gameplay there if you want to watch from start to finish what the game looked like. But in my reviews, I usually try to grab one of the people that I play with and ask them for a hot take. So today we have Raul. He actually tried the Gen 3 paddle, and I was his partner using the FLiK Plus. So let's take a look at some of the gameplay here and hear what Raul has to say.
All right, hey guys, this is Rahul Yadav. I generally play with the Yola racket. I started playing with this. This felt really good. This has like a lot of good power, and then it has a little bit roughness, so it helped me with a lot of control. So when I was taking like a lot of shots really fast, so it helps me with controlling that. So like instead of going through the line, it is coming inside. So I really felt good with this. The handle over here is really soft, so it helped me like get with a very good grip, and overall, yeah, it felt really good to play with this one.
As you can see from the gameplay, the paddle has no lack of power, and Raul has always kind of joked about coming from a tennis background, learning to dial his drive back because it's his default. I'm picky when it comes to a paddle. I don't like pop, and I want to reset, and I want to play a little bit softer, and this paddle allowed me to do that. Now you can see in the footage with Raul, I was playing with the FLiK Plus. So let's talk about the FLiK Plus now. That is a Gen 1 construction, which means it's cold press. Now dimensions 17 by 8, and the handle is 5.8 inches long, and it has 2 layers of carbon fiber and 1 layer of fiberglass. Now, what's so special about this FLiK Plus paddle? Well, it is oversized. At 17 by 8 inches with a 5.8-inch handle, you get reach with a massive face. I think it's very helpful for those who might be slow on their feet or just starting off and need a little bit more paddle to grab that ball. On top of that, Body Helix added more grit than is allowed by the usual standards, so it's extra gritty for shaping the ball and control. And because it's Gen 1, it's very forgiving and very easy to do resets with. Does it have power? Yeah, but not really, because it's Gen 1 and it's a massive thin face, and I think the thin 14mm thickness is helping bring down the weight of the paddle because of the dimensions of it, rather than help with the power. So use that as you will. So now, what is the disadvantage of the FLiK Plus? Well, because of that massive face and Gen 1 construction, any mishits around the perimeter are exaggerated. And you can see in some of the footage that I play, if I hit it in the corner or on the edge, that ball dies off tremendously. I do think you can negate this by adding some perimeter weight, maybe in the corners or around the edges, and that should help bring that sweet spot out. You're gonna create a little bit more weight, but the paddle feels pretty maneuverable already, so I don't think it's a disadvantage to add that weight in. So when it came time to asking somebody to do a hot take of this paddle, I knew exactly who I was gonna ask. I asked Karen to try this paddle out, and she was more than happy to. And you can see some of the shots here. I feel like the paddle gave her a confidence that her standard paddle that she bought on Amazon did not give her. I'm not one to usually say that a paddle can make a player, but there is something about this paddle in Karen's hands and the confidence that it gave her, and I think that's because of the size, the reach, and the grit that it offers. And I do think that the FLiK Plus is a great paddle choice for those who are either in the beginner intermediate class and never really see themselves going to a tournament, and they're just out there to have fun and play, and they really just need that extra help. If I were to keep it and play with it, I would have probably added some weight to it. But there's a reason why you don't see it here with me today. Well, Karen kept asking every time she'd come, hey, do you have that FLiK paddle? I really wanted to try it again today. So much so that I decided to give it to her. If you've seen any of my previous reviews, I don't have a wall of paddles behind me for a reason. I'd like to give paddles away instead of keeping them and collecting dust. And so I want to give back to the community, and this was my way of giving back. I decided to give Karen that paddle after I finished my review, and that is why you don't see it here at my desk right now. And I think Karen's actions speak louder than her coming on camera to speak about it. Her coming to me and asking me to continue to use that paddle, I think says it all. It was exactly what she needed. And that's what I hope, is that as I do some of these reviews, that folks can find the paddle that does that for them. Let's do a quick recap of the paddles and then cover the FLiK lineup and talk about what that means for you and maybe some suggestions for Body Helix. Gen 3 paddle, I would say all court plus, plenty of power, very controllable and easy to carve. Great paddle. There is a FLiK version and a USAP approved version. So pay attention to when you go to the website and whether or not that's one that you want to get. You save a couple bucks on the FLiK version, but you won't be able to use it in USAP tournaments that require that. So keep that in mind. Now, the FLiK Plus paddle, that one is Gen 1, great reach, great grit, awesome paddle for beginner to intermediate that is playing rec ball. If you are just out there for rec, if you can get it on their sale price for 80 bucks, man, that's a steal. For $80 for that paddle, it was such a fun paddle to play with. Here's my thoughts on the FLiK lineup. You have a Gen 3 paddle that is $140, and then the USAP approved version for $180. Personally, I don't know that that's a big enough price difference to justify not getting the USAP approved version, but I also think that the 140 is probably a little too pricey for the non-approved version. Now, this did go on sale for $80 at one point, and I do think that based on the FLiK Plus, I believe in the F1, both hitting that $80 price point at some point, that feels like a really good baseline for a sandbox paddle that is not approved. So my concept would be, if you are releasing a FLiK paddle and it's not approved, maybe find that base price of $80. if it comes with an approved version. Maybe that's the 120, 140, 180, whatever they want that to be. Also, something to consider would be like, hey, here's the FLiK version, and then here it is in the USAP approved version, and add some visual differences just to help justify like seeing the two paddles next to each other on the website for sale. My concern is that they put FLiK approved on these paddles, and that could be a little confusing for some folks. Even though it says on the website it's not approved for USAP, I think the verbiage of approved is something that I would steer away from if I was bought a Helix. But that's just my 2 cents. Otherwise, amazing quality, amazing build materials. They're really playing around with these paddles, and they're putting some time and effort into them, and they're choosing quality stuff. And I really do think that these are some great paddles. I think they have some kinks to work out with the FLiK, kind of the way that whole thing works, but I like the concept, and I like the idea of experimenting and trying to save the consumer some money and almost kind of building that into some R&D. With that being said, I hope you found this review helpful, and I hope you find the paddle that's right for you. And until next time, take care.